Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome, happy Wednesday. Here we are for another round of Budget Committee discussions for 2026. First, I wanted to welcome our new members, new member tonight, Karen. Welcome. John, Tilly, and Megan Brown are both traveling, so they're unable to attend tonight, as well as Lindsay. So we're a little short tonight. You all have your agendas in front of you. There are lots of papers for the new folks. Kim will walk through orient us to all of our materials. There's some updated budget materials. Tonight we're planning to discuss or just introduce the budget and then the CIP, capital reserves. A lot of that stuff's still being worked on, so it's not final, right, as we know. We'll talk about our schedule that we've already planned, but want to make sure that still works for everyone, and then any other business. So fingers crossed, it should be relatively fast, but we know when we say that what ends up happening. So I dare not say it, right? Anyway, why don't we start with minutes from May 8th, approval of the minutes. Karen.
I have a couple of changes.
Okay.
And it has in the minutes that I abstained for the vote of vice chair, and to correct that, I voted for Charlie, and it had that Lou voted for Charlie and he abstained.
Okay.
So if that could be
we'll
made, that would be great. And the other thing, just as a request, when they are posted they're in draft form, if that could be included in the link that it's draft. You know, when the posted minutes right now as of May 8th read that as we just discussed, but I'm just thinking if they are posted and they're not final, if it could read as draft, that would be great.
So like in the link, you just wanted to say draft?
Well, when someone would click on, they would see that the minutes are draft minutes, as opposed to assuming that they've been approved.
I'll leave that up to Kim and her team.
No, it just seems like a reasonable thing.
That's a really good, that's a
Thank
very
you.
good observation.
Okay. Any other requests on the minutes?
Just the same thing as Karen's talking about. I would like to see the draft minutes come out like a week after the meeting to go back and try and critique minutes that were months ago is very difficult. So at least we could have the draft to look at it. I think it would be helpful. Thank you.
I believe we looked at those
Well, I think-
last meeting we had.
They were posted a long time ago, but you didn't have the link until we just sent the agenda.
Yeah.
But we could let you know when we post them, if that would be helpful.
Oh, I need all the help I can get.
Happy to help you, John, no problem.
All right, good ideas. Any other edits or discussions on minutes outside of Karen's? All right, so all those in favor of accepting the changes and approving the minutes?
That's changed.
Sorry, yes, as changed. All right. All right, so next item on the agenda is the Budget Committee's schedule. We've already proposed a schedule. I guess the question, I don't have it in front of me, Kim. I could pull it up. Oh, yeah. Pink sheet. It's hiding under there. So tonight is CIP, capital reserves. I'll let you can read it yourselves. I know we're trying to maximize as many people as we can get here. You know, there are family things and work things that sometimes folks can't be here. We have these recorded, so if I'd ask a member if they can't attend, and I'll reiterate to Megan and to John to watch the Zoom. But any questions or any changes, proposed changes on the agenda? None? Okay. So we will keep agenda as is. We can always, as we go through the budget week by week, if we need to make changes, we certainly can. Or if we feel like we are falling behind or moving forward, we can make those changes as a committee. All right. Next on the agenda is the Selectmen's report.
Okay. So we had our second annual budget jamboree on Friday, October 25th, and it seems to go well, that process of having the all-day budget meetings. We got out around 2:15, I think, and after that, the selectmen have now met a couple of times to review the budget. As you'll hear tonight, we haven't finalized it yet. We're hoping to do that tomorrow night. You'll see on the summary page, we're working on scenario 3 right now. We asked department heads to go back and sharpen their pencils a little bit, which they've done. And we still have a couple of other issues that we're working through. We met with the Rec Commission last night because there was a thought that perhaps we might consider taking the rec director position back to part-time. So we met with the Rec Commission last night. They gave us their recommendations, and we'll be discussing that at our selectmen meeting tomorrow night and making a final decision on that, along with some other ideas that we've had. Other highlights for tomorrow night's meeting, like I told you, it's going to be a busy one. On top of the budget, on top of finalizing the budget, we're also going to do a first read of a health regulation on septic pumping. We've been working on this for about a year now. We've taken some feedback from residents through a focus group. We've worked with other surrounding towns, borrowing from their health regulations that they've been putting in place. Springfield just put one in a couple weeks ago. And so we'll do a first read tomorrow night, and then we'll present it at the community gathering in December 16th. And then hopefully sign it before the end of the year. It will go into effect it'll go into effect January 1st, 2026, but we want to take the year of 2025 to kind of allow people to get used to the idea of pumping their septic systems and submitting their receipts, and give Adam and Cara and everybody else in the town office a chance to set up the system on how they're going to keep track of the receipts. Also, tomorrow night, continued conversation on the swimline petition down at Elkins Beach. Jamie Hess will be presenting to us a memo that he's drawn up on the further investment to purchase the solar panels, which will have an effect on our decision around the budget. And the police station project, the wetlands delineation is done on the Garvey property, and we're just waiting for those updated reports from the architects and that project, which are due by December 2nd. And we continue to monitor the Coalition Communities education funding lawsuit. They made arguments in front of the Supreme Court last week, and so we're just monitoring at this point. That's about it, unless anybody has any other questions.
Any questions for BB from committee members? It's an awfully quiet group to start. John, come on, yeah.
I got to admit, I didn't, the wetlands was done, is this on the Garvey property? Okay, thanks.
I have a question. BB, I was at the select board budget review meeting, and then the follow-up meeting that took place, talking about some reductions to the proposed budget. Did the select board provide the department heads a target to reach, or some sense of a goal or direction that influenced their budgeting process and/or the ultimate reductions that were raised?
No, I wouldn't say they were given a target. I would say that they were asked to take another look. With the ultimate goal is to try to get that number down. You'll see on your summary page that number down to 5%. I don't have it with me.
So currently, the general operating shows a 4.6% increase.
Right.
And you're referring to the
I'm referring to that, see how that says
5.05.
5.05?
Yeah, so if you look, sorry. So if you look over to the left, under that line that says other possible reductions in the amount of $82,859, that's the number that we're trying to get to right now.
Okay.
and we may not get there. I don't know, but that's what we're trying to do, is to get that number to stick at 5.05%.
Thank you.
Karen?
When it's the right time, Chris, I just had some thoughts I wanted to share with the committee about a perspective I will be taking as I engage for the first time as a member of this committee. And since we don't really know each other, I wanted to take the time to share some thoughts that I've been thinking about over the past, since we last met, last May. So whenever the time's right, I'd love to
Sure, go
share it.
ahead.
Okay. First, I'd like to say, very nice to be back together and to see all in the room. I really appreciate that. And I want to share some thoughts of what I will be having in front of mind as we deliberate on needs versus wants in the fiscal year 2026 budget. The affordability challenge of living in New London. Just last week, at the Housing Commission gathering, it was noted that 34% of New London homeowners are cost-burdened, meaning spending over 30% of income on housing costs, like mortgage, insurance, utilities, property tax, and that number was through 2021. Cost pressures continue to mount. In their upcoming tax bill, New London taxpayers are about to see the town tax rate go up from 305 to 352, a 15% increase. It would have been closer to 25% if $600,000 was not used from reserves to soften it. The local education rate is up 6%, from 483 to 513. Plus, in the water precinct, the tax rate went from 0.74 to 110, a 48% increase as it begins to pay for the $5 million Main Street water project. Coming soon will likely be rising water user bill rates based on proposed changes to billing, and the Select Board has identified addressing sewer rates as well. Over the past 2 years, the town's retained fund balance per the New Hampshire Department of Revenue, DOR, has gone from 7.25% to 6.81%. The minimum recommended guideline by DOR is 5%. So what does this mean for the likelihood of future drawdowns on this fund being used as a way of softening the impact on tax rate increases? In my view, this means what we do now with appropriations and addressing revenues is even more critical, as that buffer coming from reserves may not be as readily available. Therefore, a more targeted and forward-looking approach towards the tax rate may be appropriate. Are there any opportunities for raising revenue? Per the DOR's tax rate breakdown report from 2023 to 2024, revenue was down 9%, from $4,720,000 to $4,288,000. What is the future trend, and are there revenue streams that could be addressed? When we last met, Dr. Wilson, using data from the February 7th budget hearing, referenced a projected tax rate for FY25. We know now the forecast turned out to be a very good one. It speaks to the excellent job our finance officer, Lynn, did in preparing it, and suggests this tool could be used earlier and more frequently in our process. Also, having in mind capital needs spending coming from other taxing entities that some or all of New London taxpayers will be bearing, like the school district, which is expecting a long-range facility study to be released in December. An early estimate for the high school roof project alone is $6 million. Plus, we have the ongoing engagement between the town and water precinct around increasing the water capacity of the system, costs and timeline to be determined. So those are just some preliminary thoughts, and I just wanted to share that with you all and to say how much I look forward to beginning the process that we are undertaking this evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks for taking the time to put that together.
You're welcome.
A lot of thoughts. I think a lot of good things for us to think about as we approach the budget this year.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions or thoughts from committee members? Well done. Thanks. All right. Why don't we move on to budget introduction? So again, Karen, as the new member, I think you're familiar with a lot of this, but I'm going to turn it over to Kim to orient us to all of our materials that we have.
Great. Okay, so as we all know, and the new member will know, this is a process where we'll continually get new paperwork. So each meeting, you will see, generally at each meeting, you'll see new materials because binders have already been picked up for most people. So it's your job to put it into the section that works for you. There's an index, so I would encourage you to put it in those areas. So before you tonight, we already went over the pink sheet, which is your schedule. BB mentioned scenario 3, and so this is the comparative budgets. We'll do this continually as things change. The selectmen are still working on their budget. You'll see the first one that we put in there, I think, is a yellow piece of paper. So as they work through their budget, they change this. So scenario 3 is the most updated one. I've also provided last year's MS 737, which is probably most helpful for the new members, to show you this is what we're working towards. You'll see that it includes both expenditures and revenues at the end. So we'll be doing that same DRA form. And then we have, and I put it in ledger form because I don't know about everybody else, but these such tiny little font that it's a little bit, I think, more helpful to have here. And Lynn will go through this in some detail. This matches up with the CIP, which is the document prepared by the planning board, and it looks at capital purchases. Lynn also includes expected deposits so that you can kind of see over time how much will be in these various accounts. Again, the selectmen haven't made decisions whether they will go along with the planning board CIP recommendations or not, and certainly once the selectmen make their decisions, then it'll be in your hands to make your decisions. And the only other thing I would add to Charlie's point, to supplement what BB said, the department heads, at least since I've been here, and I'm not sure about Jesse, have never been required to meet a particular percentage increase or decrease. The department heads are encouraged to make sure that we know of all of their needs and wants. Most of them are needs, but if they did want to include something that was a want, they would, if they felt that they should bring it forward. Sometimes it doesn't even make it out of my office or out of the selectmen. So they're encouraged to make sure that you all know the things they think they need. Selectmen are now working on and changing those things, having discussions with department heads, and there have been some changes. Department heads have gone back and made some additional changes. So to Charlie's point, the department heads are not required to come to a certain percentage. Once that gets to the selectmen are now, as you can see in scenario 3, they're trying to get somewhere around 5%. So, does anybody have any questions for me? Before I turn it to Lynn, who will get into the weeds of her numbers.
Wait for the weeds. Yeah, because it's probably pertinent to the weeds.
Hand it over to you, Lynn.
Maybe you should ask first before I go into...
Okay, does the scenario 3 comparative budget include COLA?
Yes, it does.
Where is that reflected?
It's within each department. So I just upped everybody's pay and all the items that relate to that. So all the numbers are increased based on the 3% that they've been working with.
Yeah, so they're working with the 3%. We expect the CPI to come out early December. That would be the November number, so it's possible the selectmen could change it.
Okay. but
Based
it's
on
in-
those
It's
figures.
in here at
Yes.
3% presently. Thank you.
Yep.
You're welcome. So the first thing I want to touch on is the budget software. So this is the first season that we're going through using it, and it's, some fits and starts and a lot of information. The department heads have used it. They've submitted their budgets. It's, the budgets gets approved and then they get promoted, and so we are working with it. So I am going to roll it out to you guys. I had hoped to do that right after the select board lands on some final numbers. What you'll get is a welcome email, and you click on the link, you create your account, and then you'll be able to look at all the reports and everything. I do want to do some training. There are really robust videos to watch to learn like how to navigate through. But I do want to do some initial training with the department heads. I did it in very small batches, like 2 or 3 at a time, and it worked really well. I can do that. We can set up a training session. I can set up a day where I'm just in the conference room. Anybody shows up at any moment that they want to. It's whatever works for you guys. So just kind of let me know on that, what you think, what your thoughts are. And we can do that. I can roll it out to you, and then, within the next week, just figure out times for everybody to come in. It's not hard, it's not complicated to start navigating through. When you land on your, the welcome page, you're going to see, and I forgot my thing, but you're going to see the same thing you're used to seeing. Exactly, laid out just like the worksheet. So that was the first thing I wanted to touch on.
Lynn, is there any way, with the technology that we have, is there any way, are we going to always use paper, or is there any way to project?
Oh, it'll be
that
here.
as
Yep,
okay.
definitely. Like I said, once the select board lands on their numbers, we'll link my laptop with the screens.
Okay.
And then I can bring up the department you're talking about. You'll just see the numbers for that department, and it's very interactive, and it's kind of cool.
Okay.
Okay, so Kim mentioned this report that I do, and basically what I take is the all your capital reserves. I merge it with the CIP going out to 2036, 35. Wait, I can't even read it. 2035. So we go out that far. I put in everything that has hit the CIP, all the spending, and then I focus on the first, the highlighted column is this year, and it includes what the select board is thinking of putting in of 1.170. So, and that kind of gives you an idea of where everything lands once that money is in, which accounts are have a surplus, which accounts have a negative, and what you might want to focus on, and where you want to focus your dollars, so that you don't hit too many negatives going forward, that you kind of plan for it. So that's what this is. If anybody has specific questions, let me know. Some of the numbers don't necessarily match the MS9 because there is spending that has not happened but's been accounted for in here. So any questions on that just yet? I know you guys just got it, so. And we did include a revenue sheet. Again, it's real early and it's best guesses, but that's where our revenues are landing at the moment. And oh yeah. So, and whereas we always try and go in conservative on revenues, you don't want to go, too high. But when I first plugged in all my numbers, I kind of little sticker shock that our revenues are at 5.1 million, and last year they were 4.2. But there's an additional capital outlay, which means we'll be pulling from the capital reserves $850,000 more than in 2025. So that accounts for that difference.
Lynn, could I just clarify? So on this report where it reads balance as of June 30th, 2024?
I'm sorry, it reads what?
As it reads balance June 30th of 2024?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be what's in basically the bank account?
Right, that's
fees of
the amount with the
manager?
trustee, correct. But it could also have, the trustee could have a little more than that if something has been committed at town meeting but not yet spent. A perfect example of that is sidewalks. There's $122,000 that was committed a couple years ago that hasn't been spent yet, so that comes out of that balance before I start doing any other calculations, because it's committed.
Okay, got it. So it's not necessarily
I don't want to,
spent, but it's encumbered.
right, correct.
Great,
Yep,
thank you.
Sure. And did my explanation on the revenue make sense, that if we're asking for additional $850,000 more to be spent out of capital reserves, your revenue amount's going to go up because we show that money coming out and hitting the revenue stream?
Could you repeat that
Sure.
explanation? Thank you.
So anytime we have a capital outlay, which would be any of your equipment, anything that comes from your capital reserves, we also reflect that in your revenue report as money coming in from capital reserves. And you can see that on pages, let's see, like page 5. If you look at those numbers, like library 60,000, sidewalk 60,000, highway equipment 268, those numbers you can find on this sheet and your CIP. Those are the monies that we're looking to spend. So I also record them as revenue because I'm going to pull out of your savings account and bring that into revenue. So it's a wash.
Right, you'll see the expenditures in your 22-page budget, like around page 20, it'll say capital outlays. So the expense is shown there, that we're spending the money, and then we show the revenue because it's coming in. Does that make sense?
Yep. And that goes to explain, because our capital outlays are about 850,000 more than last year, it kind of makes the revenue number jump. So, just wanted to explain that. And I think that's it for now.
And I'll just touch upon quickly warrant articles. As we know, it's really early in the season here. Expected warrant articles so far is $40,000 for historical markers. And the selectmen are looking into raising the funds from some trust funds that we have, so stay tuned on that. Lynn and I have asked the trustee of trust funds to look into that. There'll also be a $10,000 warrant article to create an expendable trust fund so that we can have the leave time buyout come out of the operating budget, put it into an expendable trust fund so the money doesn't lapse after the budget year is over. And then obviously the police station is still not decided, so that's another potential. So that's all we have so far, but there'll be most likely some others.
Question, please. On the comparative budget, scenario 3. So tying to what you were just speaking about, Kim, the 35,000, so that would be in other warrant articles?
Potentially, yes. That's 25,000 for, we're looking into more software. This will be for fillable forms, building permits, that kind of thing. So software upgrades to the town website. And then the other 10 is for the expendable trust.
Great.
So, and again, the selectmen haven't actually decided, but that's what we're thinking.
Right. And as you go down that column, we have 2 million outlay for land and $1,025,000 for vehicle and equipment, and then buildings, and under that, improvements. What,
Right.
are they warrant articles in terms of borrowing?
Well, those will be, those are capital,
operating?
some of them are capital reserves. So the 2 million would be to purchase the land for the police department. Some of the other ones, the capital outlays that you're talking about, that will be in your budget around page 20. Those are for the capital reserve items that we're buying. So that's why it's kind of underneath the transfers to capital reserve. The top part is all expenses that relate to raising and appropriating money. Capital outlays, the vehicles and equipment, those kinds of things are things from capital reserves or bonds.
So they would not be considered part of the operating budget?
The way we look at it,
Right.
yes. Yes.
And the 2 million, will that be a separate warrant?
Oh, yeah. If that goes on, it will be a bond issue. So that'll be right up at the beginning of the meeting.
And that'll have its own separate warrant article?
Absolutely.
Great.
Yep. That'll be the polls will be open for an hour, yes, no votes.
Got it, thank you.
Yep.
All right, a lot of information. Any questions for Kim or for Lynn? Again, I know some of these numbers aren't final, but certainly if there are questions, do you want to take questions?
Right, I mean, often when we come to this first meeting, the selectmen are done, but they've really been working, taking longer with their budget, so fortunately, they're not completely done. But if you look, anybody who has questions on what vehicles we're going to purchase, you could either look at these ledger sheets, or should also be in your detailed 22-page thing.
We'll review those types of purchases as well when we do individual.
Right, and then each department head, whosever department it is, will be speaking to why they need the piece of equipment or the vehicle.
All right. do have a question on the, I'm going to call it the big sheet. On the big sheet, we're looking at, under energy projects, showing red for 314,000. Kind of an update on kind of where that stands?
Now, Jamie, do you want to?
Got this?
Jamie will be meeting with the Selectmen tomorrow. As Lynn had pointed out, she plugs in the numbers from the CIP. So the CIP obviously is not a funding document. It's kind of recommendations. And so the planning board, in doing that, felt that those two expenditures was appropriate. So the Selectmen will get more information from Jamie and then decide whether or not they are going to incorporate those or nothing, whatever, into their budget. You'll have that same opportunity after you hear what the Selectmen decide. You may disagree with the Selectmen, do something else, and then at the end, we go to that reconciliation meeting where we all try and get the same thing. So it may come out red, but again, that's because the CIP has it like that.
And that's a recommendation to.
Right, and so hopefully, yep,
Instead of continuing to lease.
and adding a solar array at the stump dump.
Thank you.
Any questions on the capital reserves as they stand now?
Another one, sorry. Looking at the sewer, that's in the red as well. Just thoughts on what's going on with that? Is it the, yeah, sewer.
Yeah, that's really the same thing, is that those are items that were on the CIP, but the select board has not chosen yet to add money to that capital reserve to cover those expenses, or hasn't decided exactly how they're going to cover them.
Yeah, so I think I saw that's on for consideration tomorrow as well. Great, thank you.
I don't know if it's a question or a statement, so my thought process is, I was the Budget Committee representative on this Capital Improvement Program Committee, and there was discussion about, and included verbally in the written report, about the impact future water needs may have, and no reference to any dollar projections. And having sat in several of the meetings relative to the water precinct and some of these discussions in the capital improvement program, that is one item that I was sort of kind of not arguing for, but suggesting we might want to think about putting some kind of projection in. And the reason for that is the demands for capital are significant. These are not small numbers. And I don't want to project numbers for water without really specific information. But I think when you have a capital ask for solar, for example, is one item. There's the cumulative total is $450,000. Knowing we're going to have significant capital at some point on a preliminary basis with water, and then a future capital commitment that's going to be significant for additional capacity, if that's the direction that the town chooses, then I think it's important that we keep that in the conversation so there's context. Because Jamie's made a very good argument for, and the master plan supported, becoming carbon neutral by 2035 or 2030. The select board had conversation about maybe thinking about revising that target because of the significance of it, but also the additional capital needs. So I guess it's a general question, Chris, to think, should the committee be thinking about that request in the context of an anticipated number that's substantial that we don't know what it is.
Sure.
You know, and when we get into the discussion, I think what your comments earlier, Karen, were pointing towards is that there are some big numbers, and they're not just the town budget, they're the school as well. And I think the committee has and bears the responsibility to be maybe a little persistent around it, but contextually understanding we've got some big numbers coming down the road and we're going to have to deal with. And so dealing with it now in a 2026 fiscal year budget is prudent and appropriate as we have dialogue about it with the department heads and as a committee. I guess that's more of a statement and a question or suggestion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think there are a lot of pressures on the budget outside of what is just on the paper, and we also have the lawsuit for the schools, and that could be an additional $1 million for the town, right? $1.5 million. So I think it's a good statement and context to have as we have those discussions. Lou?
I will say, I will go in line with, both Karen and Charlie's statement, but in addition to that, we do, I'm not going to say that this town doesn't plan, because we do plan, but I think we need to be not only persistent, but proactive in looking at some of the major expenditures that we are going to have 5-10 years down the road. One of them, of course, you've already mentioned it, water. Water is, obviously, you can't live without it, and we are going to end up having to spend significant amounts of funds on seeking additional water sources. There's another one that I think of is, personnel. We're aging out in our first responder community, particularly the fire department. We're going to end up having to think about having permanent full-time employees when the volunteer force is no longer suitable for town operations. In addition to that, just recently we lost one police officer. We're going to end up competing with all of these other towns that are poaching on each other. And not only in first responders, throughout, experience, town personnel in whatever branch are hard to come by. And so I strongly, side with you, and I think we all need to put our thinking hats and not only among ourselves, look at the future in a judicious manner, but also if we can prod some of the other committees in town that they need to look at specifics, not just, if you want to, I'm not going to say fluff, but certainly, non-empirical matters.
Sorry, I was looking at, I thought John would have something, but he's not right now. All right. Not yet. All right. Anything else on number 5? Anything else on CIP, the capital reserves, bonded debt, TANs, warrant articles? Again, we'll get this updated. We should have updated numbers by next week. Maybe, possibly.
If they finish, absolutely.
Okay. All right. It's okay? Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Move on to number 6, any other business? My favorite topic. Okay, seeing as none, our next meeting will be December 4th, so we'll take a week off for the holiday, come back and start our review of administration, finance, et cetera. Any motions to adjourn?
So we're not going to question any of these department heads tonight on their capital plan.
I mean, we can if you have questions.
I sort of thought they were here for that reason, but
We'll have an opportunity in each department review.
there's a basketball game I'd like to answer, so I'm just, no, but,
Well, I think you're making a good point, John.
yeah.
I was thinking similarly that we include in the discussion with the department head the capital component of their budget.
Yeah.
And that's where the discussion should.
That's where we
should-
normally do, and
should
then we
occur.
also typically end the session right at the end, because numbers change.
Yep.
We go back to capital reserves.
Right.
As well.
Right.
So,
So let's do it then.
well, yeah, we can do it then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so any motions to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Any seconds? Second? All those in favor? Aye. All right.